of wrestling with this ancient language. I pray you give us an insight into it. I pray that you build our confidence. I pray that we would see every single time we open your word more of the glories that you've placed for us there. I pray you use this as a means of grace to help us love you more and love other people more. We pray all this in Christ's name. Amen. So it's hard to believe that we're already have or about to have our first 100 vocabulary words. So we're trying to get the top 500 by the end of the year. So we're well on our way. What we want to do is learn some today. So this is a bar. Some people think that the word Hebrew comes from this word, the one who passes by or who passes through. I tend to favor that explanation. I know that some people don't, but it's interesting. Here's a place where it's used. When the sun had gone down and it was dark, behold, smoking fire pot. So it came about when the Shemesh, that's the word for sun, went in, and darkness came about. Behold, a tanur of smoke, a smoking fire pot, and a lapid. A lot of Jewish peoples have the name lapid, a torch of fire, which passed between these cut pieces. This ceremony in ancient Semitic cultures, if you were superior and you were entering in a covenant with an inferior, you would have the inferior cut animals in pieces and walk between the pieces, and you would be saying, if I don't live up to my side of the covenant, may I become like this animal. Weird thing about this story is God causes a deep sleep to fall on Abraham, and then God assumes what looks like is the inferior position in the covenant, saying that I'm going to, may this happen to me if I don't fulfill. And so that's just stunning in of itself, but it helps us with this word abar, cross through. Mm-hmm.
That first word there, is that sun?
Yeah, the Shemesh. So Beth Shemesh.
That is one of the words that I struggled with. So oh, wait a second.
Yeah. Good. So ach is the word brother. So here's a place where it's used. And to Rebekah, there was an ach, and his name was Laban. That means whitey. Laban roots ran to the man who was outside to the city. So this is when Abraham's servant is finding a wife, and the man has camels loaded up with treasures, and he thinks he's found a wife for Isaac. Interesting thing about that story is arranged marriage, that seems pretty strange to us in our culture. I went to seminary with a guy from a culture, had an arranged marriage and totally normal for them. But interesting thing about this story is when the servant picks out Rebekah and shows off all the goods and she agrees to go, when they're coming back, and Isaac's 37 years old when this is happening, because his mother was 127 when she died, and she had him at 90, so he's 37 years old. And it says he was out in the field meditating, and it says in the story, when Rebekah saw Isaac, in the English text it says she lit off her camel, or something like that. She covered herself with a veil and lit off her camel. But in Hebrew, that's not what it says. In Hebrew, it says she fell off her camel. Like she's going to this arranged marriage, and she sees her future husband for the first time, and she falls off her camel. When she was, I guess she was so taken with him, and like he's so taken with her, so it's like this arranged marriage, but it's kind of, it's funny when you read it in the original, because like she sees him and falls off her camel. I wonder if they talked about that years later and laughed about it. So Sava, this is the word commandment, or this is a verb form, but we get the word commandment. And the mnemonic device, if you can remember, bar mitzvah means son of the commandment. Bat mitzvah is the daughter of the commandment. So Sava is the verb form, and here's a place where it's used. Noah, his name means rest, and Noah did according to all which Elohim savad him. And somebody's going to make a comment about this doubled middle radical, a verb with a double middle radical. It's a piel, so help me. Is it like a commandment, or is it like an English major? That's exactly right. Like massively commanded him or something? All, yeah. Well, this is the word like. Remember we memorized that word like? Like all which. So he did, and usually they'll do this according to all which Elohim commanded him. Thus he did. Yeah, that's exactly right. Cain is the word thus, and it appears here because 6 days Yahweh made the Shemayim and the Aretz and the Yam, sea, and the all which is in them. So 6 days he made everything. And he knowed on the seventh day. So that's really weird. He rested on the seventh day. All Cain. And this is how you'll see this word lots of times. Thus. Upon thus, or just the whole thing thus. Yahweh. And if this weren't a guttural, that would be a doubling dagesh. So what do you recognize about the word bless? What binyan has a double middle radical? Pio. So when it says God blessed the seventh day, how are you going to do the pio of that? Mega, thus Yahweh mega blessed the day of the Sabbath, the day of the ceasing is what that means. and he, Shiva under the performative and a double middle radical from the word holy, and then plus the word it on the end. He holied the daylights out of it, right? We don't have anything like that in English, do we? He mega blessed it and he made it so incredibly holy. I mean, English words fail us, but it's a PL. And PLs are great when you start being able to see them. Naka, it means to strike. My mnemonic device is knock, like knock somebody. Naka sounds kind of like that to me. So here's a place where it's used. This is Balaam, or this is the king of Moab, I think. And now come please, curse for me the people of this one, because they are atsum, they are stronger than me. Perhaps I will be able to naka in them, and I will garage. What do you do with a car in a garage? You drive it out. Garage. Perhaps I will PL garage them from the land, because I know that you mega blessed a blessing, or he's doing whom you mega blessed, that they are mega blessed, and whom you curse, they are cursed. So not cause, strike. Perhaps I will be able to strike in them.
This has any relationship to the later Greek word?
I don't know. It could be a mnemonic device we could use, though. And there are some Semitic words that make it into English, like the word guitar, maybe related to the Aramaic word cithara. I think cithara is Greek, but there's a similar Aramaic word, and I think they're related. Proto-Indo-European, maybe. People who are really into languages say that there are just 5 parent languages, and once you learn all 5, you can learn any language. At least I've heard people say that. Shalosh is 3. My mnemonic device is when they touch, it means 6. When they don't touch, it means 3. Shaish, yeah. So here's a place where Enoch Hithpael walked himself around with Elohim after he begot. They die when he sends it. That's what Methuselah means. 300 years, and he begot sons and daughters. So Shalosh, and I love that walk around. Enoch walked around with God and was not, for God took him. Noah walks himself around with God. Abraham, in 18, God says, walk yourself around with me and be blameless. So interesting little word there, but it gives us 3 and 300.
This is very clearly Mekushla. How do we end up with the TH?
Well, it's a begadkafat, and the begadkafat would take the H out, but this doesn't have, so originally it would have the TH, so it would be Methuselah. And if you just had that word by itself, it would say they die. And if you just had that word by itself, it's he sends it. He sends it, they die. And if you've taken the trouble to add the numbers up, he dies the same year the flood happens. So, like, did he know as soon as he died the flood was going to come? I don't know, but it's interesting. Sava. So this is how you say the word army. And here's the place where it's used. And he said no. So Joshua says, are you for us or against us? And he said, no. No. Because I am the captain of the army of Yahweh. Now I come, and Yehoshua fell down on his face to the ground, and he worshipped, and he said, what, my Lord, are you PL debarring to his servant? What is my Lord PL debarring to his servant? I love how Tony Evans does this. He says, when the captain says no, in effect he's saying, I didn't come here to take part, I came here to take over. I'm not for you or against you, I'm the captain. You're for or against me. So, Saba, and if you can remember Luther's hymn, Lord Sabaoth, his name, the Lord of hosts. So God doesn't just have one army, he's got multiple armies.
I don't know if this applies for anyone else, but for me, my mnemonic for this is hostis in Latin is enemy. And so if you relate enemy with army, then you get enemy hostis into this word. So, what?
Me too. I'm thinking, although Krispy Kreme's better than Host. Do you guys like Krispy Kreme donuts? Have you ever had Krispy Kreme? My dad worked nights in Atlanta, and he would come by the Krispy Kreme. A lot of times he would buy donuts, and like they would still be hot, and we would just scarf them. It's like how we didn't all get diabetes. I don't know. But my family and I went to that same place in Atlanta, and you can watch them make the Krispy Kreme donuts, you know, and it's like this melted sugar and it just drips on the, you know, they go through on a conveyor belt. And if anything is wrong with any of the donuts, they just put it in a big garbage can. So we were there and they had this like garbage can full of Krispy Kreme donuts. And I'm going to say the thought ran through. Okay, so all. So we've had El meaning God. We've had El to or toward. All is the negative of a jussive verb. You should not do that. My grandmother used to say, you mustn't do that. You mustn't do that. This is how you negate a subjunctive, a jussive in Hebrew. Weird thing about Ten Commandments, this is not how the Ten Commandments are negated. He's not asking. He's saying, you will not do this. So here's a place where Moses said to the people, you should not be afraid. stand and see. And you tell me, you know how Christocentric, meta-narratival, elegance, all that. You tell me, stand back and see what would the lexical form of this word be? This is a feminine construct, so they're coming to the Red Sea, and what makes a way in the Red Sea for them to be saved amidst the deadly waters? The Yeshua creates a salvific space. Definite direct object marker. You will see the Yeshua of Yahweh, which he will make for you the day. And then I love this, because that, I'm just going to do the whole thing as because you will see the Egyptians, or the Egyptians whom you see today, you're never going to see them again, into the forever. And it tells us why, because God's going to fight for you. God's going to stand between you and you wonder if that isn't related to this Yeshua. Yeah, it closes a syllable. Hey, week 37 years. Chamesh. My mnemonic device is, if you ever run across a rabbinic commentary on the first 5 books of the Bible, they call it a chumash. They call it a fiver. So here's a place where, and Seth lived 5 years and 100 year. So that's odd. With the little ones, you do plurals. 5 years and 100 year. And he begot Enosh. So you do it backwards. 5 and 100 is 105. There are other languages that do that. I wish I knew German well enough, but I know that German does something like that in some of their numbers, where you do it backwards to what we would do it. And I don't know what the rule is. What's that? And here we see it in a language 3,500 years old. Ode is still. And wouldn't you know, it appears in Ezekiel 36. And so it's not like I love Ezekiel 36 or have memorized Ezekiel 36 or like go over it every single day of my life or anything like that, but it happens to be here. And I will make great the fruit of the tree. Can you hear the Eden language there? I'll make great the fruit of the tree and the produce of the field, in order that you will not take again the herfat ra'av bagoyim, the reproach of being hungry among the nations. And I don't know if you pick up when God kicks Adam out of the garden, and he says, by the sweat of your brow you will eat bread. He's telling him he's going to be hungry. And think about how many people in this story get driven out of the promised land because there's a famine, right? They're repeating the Adam exile. And when the new covenant comes, God says, you're never going to have the reproach of being hungry. Rosh, we might be able to guess this from Rosh Hashanah, which is the head of the new year, which I was talking to one of the Tyreek girls and asking her, the whole Jewish backgrounds. Rosh Hashanah either just happened or is about to happen, and I don't know which one it is, but it's shortly after the autumnal equinox, and the autumnal equinox was the 23rd, I think. It's the first black full moon after the autumnal equinox is Rosh Hashanah. And I was thinking Bereshit. Bereshit, Rosh, head, they're all connected. So this is really interesting to me. Enmity, and if we looked up the book of Job, Job's name is spelled this way, like his name looks like it's hatred. Enmity I will place between you and between the woman, and between your seed and between her seed. He will shafka you in the head, and you will shafka him in the akab. So heel. But do you hear how that's a very close echo to the word Jacob? Hold the heel when he's born. And so he's going to strike your head, you're going to strike his heel. But we have there Rosh, so head, Rosh. Gadol means great. And here's a place where it's used. I will make you into a goy gadol, a great goy, and I will shiva underneath the performative in what would be a double dagesh. What is that? Piel. And I will mega bless you, and shiva under the performative in a double dagesh from the word gadol. So if this means great, what would you guess gadol would mean as a verb? And then how would you put it in the PL? Elizabeth, I see you smiling. How would you put it in the PL? Oh, massively strengthen the daylights out. Like, I'm going to make you so great. I'm going to gadol your name, and your name's going to be a blessing. I will make you into a goy gadol. I will mega bless you. And I have to admit, when I translate this on my own, you know what I say here? I'll PL bless you. And I'll PL make you great, your name. And it will be a blessing. Because we don't really have a way to intensify already intense words, but they had a way to do it. Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim. It's related to shalom. Yerushalayim. What would you guess?
What's the symbol or icon underneath the planet?
It should be a Hierarch.
It looks like a dot and a line.
Yeah, it's because the font is messed up. It should be a Hierarch and a Patah. and this is defectively written. There should be a yod here. So tell me, what can you tell me about that word, Yerushalayim?
Someone's spelling error was preserved.
Okay, good. What does the word mean? Jerusalem. And what is the ending Aim? And what's your question? Why are there two? And my answer is it's meaningless. Just forget about it. That would get my vote. Do you know that lots of words in Hebrew are like initialisms, where they take little pieces of other words and put it together to make a new word? Yarash looks like the word possess or inherit. And you know what shalom means. Or they possess peace. A lot of times if you have a sharuk between the second and third, it's some kind of passive made to possess peace or something.
So is shalom itself?
Shalom, but shalayim is like double peace, I guess. And and Jacob, there you can see it's separated, but it's being, I would have thought there would be a yod there, but I will pour out on the house of David and upon the one living in Jerusalem a ruach hain, a spirit of hain, grace, and tahanunim. Can you see that tahanunim is related to the same root? So it's a spirit of grace and pleas for mercy is usually how it's translated. And they will look upon, and I think that's a hiphil, but I don't know what the causative element of it would be. They will look to me, the one whom they've pierced, and they will lament over him like the lamentation over a yahid, over a precious one. And they will be bitter over him like the bitterness over a firstborn. I'm going to read this part of the sentence again. You tell me what's wrong with it grammatically, or what sounds wrong. They will look to me, the one whom they've pierced, and they will mourn for him like the mourning over a precious one, like the bitterness upon him, and they will be bitter, to be bitter upon him like the bitterness of a firstborn. What's grammatically confusing about that statement? Did you pick up it changes? They will look to me, the one whom they pierced. They will mourn for me is what it should say, but it doesn't. It switches upon him. So the person who is the me talks about the person who's pierced as a third person. Happens everywhere in the Hebrew Bible, just like that. And of course, this pierced is a piercing through where you kill the person.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but within Judaism, their idea, or they don't really have an idea of the Trinity. They're Unitarian. So how would the ending of Elohim, how would they just reflect that?
Well, until 400 AD, and if you're interested, there's a book written by a Jewish man, Alan Siegel. It's in our library, and it's called Two Powers in Heaven. And until AD 400, Jews were pretty free with the idea that there's a plurality within the more basic unity of God. They even had a name. They would call that entity the little Yahweh. They even had a name, Metatron. And Metatron is mentioned in the Dead Sea Scrolls in First Enoch. And it's like God appears, or the angel appears and starts talking as God, and they said, no problem, that's the little Yahweh. What do you imagine happened before 400 AD when Jews would come to a passage and say, oh, that's the little Yahweh, and they're talking to a Christian person? What do you imagine would happen? So 400 AD, the rabbi says, okay, that's it. The next person who says Metatron's out. And they changed all the passages where they used to explain two powers in heaven, and they said, we aren't going to use that argument anymore. And after 400, they didn't. But before 400 AD, they did. And it was because, that kind of interpretations, it's in Philo, it's in the Dead Sea Scrolls, it's in First Enoch. And you come to the text and you can see the places, Yahweh and the two angels come to Abraham. Two angels go to Sodom and Gomorrah. Yahweh goes to heaven. And then you've got a verse where one of the angels starts talking like Yahweh in 19. And then you've got a verse, so Yahweh rained down fire from Yahweh in heaven. You can see how easy that is to say there are two figures being called Yahweh, and there are two figures being called Yahweh there. But after 400, they said we're not gonna hand over the keys to the farm, by admitting that these texts are having more than one person being called Yahweh. I don't know. I think Metatron may be an Aramaic word, and it may have something to do with replacement, but my memory is really, really vague there. I should know that. It's in one of the documents I studied for my doctoral thesis.
Do you know what Tron means? Meta is Greek and it's with.
I think it's an Aramaic root, but what it is, I don't think it's like originally a Greek word, but I could be wrong. So we can thank Jonas Tyree for this, because I used to tell all my classes that joke. My professor told me that Hebrew is the only language where who is he and he is she and me is who and dog is fish. Right? You get 4 words if you can do that. Who is he is she, me is who, and dog is fish. And Jonas said, Ma? What? Because Ma means what? The question mark what? So I wish I had thought of that, but I didn't think of that. He thought of it. So who is he and he is she and me is who, and dog is fish. Ma? Or he may have said, what, Ma? Or something. But anyway, if you can do that, you can get 5 of them. And they're very common words. Those are 5 very common words. And here's a place where it's used. Yahweh Elohim fashioned from the Adamah all the creatures of the field and all the birds of the heavens, and he brought them to the Adam to see what he would call to it. And everything which he called to it, that is the Adam, everything the Adam called to it, Nefesh Hayah, that was its name. And Tavek is a word that means in the middle of or in the midst. But here's how you're always going to see it, at least in my opinion. From the fruit of the tree which is in the Tavek of the garden. So it goes from Tavek to Tok. So it's Betok. And every time I remember reading this word, this is how it appears. So this is the lexical form, but this is how you're going to see it, which is in the middle of the garden. Elohim said, y'all will not eat from it, and y'all will not touch it, lest y'all die. Which is really weird, because Eve has just misquoted God, and it's either she misquoted God or Adam was the first legalist, because God never said anything about not touching it. That's a made up thing. Maybe it's a good thing, but it's like Adam saying we shouldn't eat, so instead of telling Eve we shouldn't eat, he says we shouldn't eat and we shouldn't touch it, you know.
God originally gives this command, does he use the y'all form?
He doesn't. The command is to the man. You singular will not eat, because on the day you singular eat, you singular will die. Now,
Why does she make it plural? And not just dual, because there are only two humans in existence at this time.
can you feel how intriguing it is to read this in the original? Like it just raises questions that would be very difficult to get. So, sorry, I went over. That's what I have for you. I'll see you on Friday. I hope you have a great evening.